Aamir, Salman and Shah Rukh Khan. What makes this trio most loved and revered in the Hindi film industry nearly 3 decades since they made their first debut? We have Kaveree Bamzai, author of the just-released book, The Three Khans and the Emergence of New India, Westland Nonfiction, who writes about how the Troika spearheaded a dramatic change in the film industry and how their own work was being influenced by the changes taking place in the newly liberalized India. Welcome, Kaveree.
Thank you so much, Jane, and thank you for reading it.
It's a very interesting book for starters. And you've kind of given us the trajectory of their careers from 1988, 1989, when Aamir made his debut with Qayamat Se Qayamat. Not his debut, but the big entry into Bollywood with Qayamat Se Qayamat Tak. Who among the three Khans do you think has had the most interesting film career graph and why?
Jane, I think it's been Shah Rukh Khan, because if you look at him, I mean, here's a man who has nothing to do with the film industry. Aamir's father was a producer, his uncle was an even bigger producer. Salman's father was a movie writer, a very famous one, someone who actually reinvented film writing for Bollywood. Here you have Shah Rukh Khan, who has nothing to do with the industry, who's also not very sure when he begins that this is exactly what he wants to do, but who comes in from Delhi with just experience in stage and television, and who really, through sheer force of will, and of course that whole aura of being parentless and, coming to a new city with nothing except 10,000 rupees and with a wife, just like Aamir. I mean, he came into the industry married. And yet he creates for himself this amazing, amazing career graph. So truly, I don't know how much of it is his own creation of myth, but that whole idea that, he stands on Marine Drive and says he will own the city one day and then builds one of the most palatial bungalows in the city. It really is the stuff of legends, isn't it?
Somewhere in the middle of the book, or actually right at the end, you mentioned that Salman Khan has made more emotional choices when selecting his films, especially when you compare it with the two Khans or any other actor in the industry. Do you think that has worked against him at any given point in time?
It's worked against him, but then it's worked for him as well, because I firmly believe that they had that one big fight, Salman and Shah Rukh, which I think really was, without overstating it, it really was the big point where Salman realized that he needs to do something with his career, because there was a point before Wanted came out, if you remember, almost everybody had written him off. Nobody really took him very seriously. Again, this is a man who picks up the pieces of his career and has, of course, through all this we have seen, assault on girlfriends, assault on poor innocent animals, assault on poor people sleeping on the roads. I mean, anything that you can think of has happened to him. And again, through emotion, through again that whole idea that, I have to recreate myself and I have to do something about myself, written off by everyone, including his father at the beginning of his career, thinks that this is a man who, does he think he wants to be a leading man? I mean, no way. Arbaz was the one who was supposed to be the star. And Salman, they thought, okay, if he's lucky, he can get into writing.
You've met the three Khans at different points in their careers. Who's your personal favorite?
Someone who is the most entertaining, I would say, is definitely Shah Rukh. I think anyone who has been in his company even for 5 minutes begins to believe that they're the most important person in his life at that moment. And then, of course, for 2 years, 3 years, you will not hear a word from him, and then suddenly he will pop up back in your life. So sheer intelligent conversation, a man who can talk about books, who can talk about movies, who can talk about life, who can talk about bringing up children. I think it would have to be Shah Rukh. But for the most thoughtful and introspective answers, yes, it would have to be Aamir. And the most unintended entertainment, it has to be Salman. I remember meeting Salman for the first time, and he told me, I've got a message from the President of America right here on my table. So I said, wow. So he said, Abraham Lincoln. I said, well.
Your book talks about the Khans over the last 3 decades. And you also, in a way, think about what their future is going to be like. I'd like to ask you, from what you've seen, do you see one of them or among them here for the long haul?
All of them are going to be around for us in the long haul in some way or the other. You'll have Salman, I think, well into his 60s with his creaky knees and his broken bones, still trying to do the action stuff. As he says, the only fat I have on my body is under my eyes. What lines, Sometimes you wonder where he comes up with them. Aamir, because he plays characters, I think very early on in his career, he realized that this is a great switch. You play characters, so you can age. It doesn't really matter. You can be father to the same woman in Dangal, and you can be somewhat boyfriend to her in Thugs of Hindustan. It doesn't, you can do that because you're playing characters. And for Shah Rukh, I think maybe not so much as the romantic hero as we've come to love him, but as a businessman, he's going to be around on our screens, cheering and, getting frustrated every time KKR wins or loses. And he's not so much now of a public speaker, but who always has a view on everything. I think he's going to be there. His transition in terms of his career is going to be the most difficult. I would ideally like to see him in mature love stories, as would the rest of the world. But, they never want to age. So they will never want to play against women of their own age. But otherwise, just imagine a movie with Shah Rukh Khan and Madhuri Dixit playing their ages could be wonderful, right? But who's to tell them?
I thought about Kajol and Shah Rukh in the last film that they made together, and it was so disappointing.
Yeah, and I thought, my God, I wish they had never ever done that, because, see, that's the thing, when you talked about being influenced by each other, for Shah Rukh, it was so important to be part of that 100 crore club that he really, in that phase just completely messed up his career, and instead of focusing on Raees, he would go and do a Dilwale or go and do a Happy New Year, completely rubbish movies which have done nothing to endear him to his audience. So I'm glad in a way the pandemic has put an end to that whole idea of the 100 and 200 and 300 crore club.
Thank you so much, Kaveree. A pleasure having you on Sunday Midday, and I'm really wishing you all the very best for your book, The Three
Thank
Stars.
you. I can't resist plugging it once again. Thank you so much, Jane, for having me. And to all the Sunday Midday readers, please go buy it and read it and tell me what you think.